Happy Friday and good morning. It is another Mavens of Manufacturing Day, and I'm super excited because we have Leigh here, and she's going to be sharing some of her stories. She started out in customer service, and now she is VP of Mighty Hook. And I'm so glad that you're here, Leigh, because I've not heard of Mighty Hook until I was connected with you and met you. So I'm super excited to learn more about your company and the things that you guys do to help people out and manufacturing. So if you're in the comments, please drop your name and where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions for Leigh as we continue on with our conversation, please let us know. This was scheduled about a couple weeks ago, but Leigh had to go to a field trip, so I'm super excited that she was able to reschedule. And we were talking about that before we went live, like how fun it is to go on our kids' field trips and just see the different personalities. So, Leigh, how are you doing? Welcome to Mavens.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Megan, for having me. Again, I apologize for having to
no
change
worries.
dates on you, but I did get to take 65-year-olds to the Chicago Children's Museum, and it was exhausting, but it was so fun to interact with all the kids, and they're just, that age is just so fun.
How did your leadership skills help you in that situation? Because that amount of 5-year-olds at such a big museum, like I would have been a little freaked out internally.
They did a really nice job. So each parent was assigned 4 children. So, and one being my own. So that made it a little bit easier. Although I have to say, another dad and I were talking, and we thought it might have been easier to not have our own kids in our group, because the other 3 kids were super well behaved, so polite, so nice. And then, we're trying to leave, and my son's the one running around trying to hide so we don't have to
go. So that's hilarious you brought that up. When I was younger, I'm the youngest of 6, and my mom took us out to Kmart. I don't know if that store is even still around in some places in the United States, but took us out, and I thought we were playing hide and seek, and I hid in one of those circular racks.
Oh God.
They ended up shutting the whole store down. She thought I got kidnapped. I was hiding for like a good 3 or 4 hours. Yeah. And they kept like announcing my name on this overhead speaker, and I was like, nope, I'm staying here. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to lure me out. I'm winning this game. She was so, I think she was more mad after the fact, but like when they initially found me, she was so really, yeah. So I get that whole, like, it's a game. We're in a big place. Let's play.
Right. That's terrifying.
Yeah. But I do want to talk to you about more manufacturing stuff, and we'll talk about motherhood a little later on too. But
absolutely.
You are the vice president of a company called Mighty Hook. So can you just give us a brief overview of what Mighty Hook is? Like,
sure.
What do you guys do?
So Mighty Hook is a small manufacturing company. We have 46 employees right now. We manufacture steel hooks and racks for the organic coating industry. So most of our customers do powder coating. And so we help facilitate everything that is below the conveyor on their paint lines. So we do everything from stock, 4-inch C hooks to giant racks that are hanging, 1,000-pound tractor pieces, or we work a lot with the automotive industry. So it's really cool because we are not industry specific. So anything and everything these days gets a coating of some sort. Yeah. So we get to work with a wide variety of customers and some really unique projects. We have a full engineering team here that does design work on. People send parts in to say, I don't know how to hang this without getting paint marks or shadows, or they're just looking to improve what they're currently doing.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. Well, how did you get involved with Mighty Hook? Like, was engineering and manufacturing something you always wanted to get involved with?
So I've always been, in my professional career, I've always worked in manufacturing settings. So my very first job was working for a customer service group for a large manufacturing company where I grew up in Quincy, Illinois.
Okay.
And I worked there for a couple of years and got promoted to the supervisor of the department. Um, and then kind of had some crazy life things happen and found myself in the middle of a divorce and decided one day to quit my job, pack up, and move to Chicago. So, no job, no plan, just packed up and moved. And within about a month, I had a job at a manufacturing facility in the Chicago suburbs.
Hmm.
There, I was also involved in the customer service group, supervising again. Um, Worked there for about 5 years. And within that time, met my wonderful current husband. And we went on a trip, and I came back, and they had done some layoffs, and my role was eliminated. So I was at home one day. I had an awesome severance package and hadn't really even started my job hunt when a recruiter called me and said, "I've found your profile on LinkedIn and I have a role here that I think you might be a great fit for." So I was kind of on the fence with it because I'd always worked in large corporate settings and Mighty Hook
Hmm.
small business. And that had me a little nervous. So I met with the owner and interviewed with several people. And I left with like the best feeling, like this could be something really cool. And I took it, and I came in the first day, and he basically like handed me this department and said, "This is your baby, do what you want with it." Like all of a sudden had the empowerment to make changes and
Hmm.
do all these things without having to ask permission or get sign-offs from 5 or 6 different people. So it's been such a great change for me going from such a large place to a smaller company.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because my brother recently is, and he's not switching job. He's doing like a side hustle right now, and he works in a larger corporate manufacturing place. And he was just so taken back that when he entered this smaller place, they were like, "Oh, just log in your hours," and he's like, "Doesn't anyone have to check this?" And they were like, "No, we trust you, like that's why we hired you." And I'm like, "You were institutionalized basically at this
Yeah.
other place."
It was a big adjustment. Like I have
Yeah.
to say, like people were, because I would say that most of the staff at the time when I joined had been at Mighty Hook for 10 plus years.
Hmm.
And for me to come in and like not, asking questions like similar to that, and they'd be like, "Where have you worked? Like, where did you come from?"
Yeah.
So I think it's an adjustment both going from small to large and then coming down from large to small.
Do you think working at the larger corporation setting kind of hindered your ability to be able to progress forward in your career versus where you're at now? Because you started out at customer service, you were basically given the keys to drive however you want, and that's very empowering. And if you're confident in yourself and you're able to make your own decisions, so I feel like that helped you grow a little bit quicker in your career
Yeah,
trajectory. So do you feel like
100%.
that's
Yes, for
awesome?
sure. I think that it could still have happened, but it would have taken 3 times as long to get there.
So what what are some of the things that you're doing now as the vice president? Like how would you define a good leader, and what is it with the customer service that you really enjoy doing, and how do you apply your leadership skills to what you're doing now as the vice president?
Sure. So I think that, just from experience, I have worked with and had both good and bad leaders. I think kind of everybody's
Oh yeah.
probably run into that. Um, and so I think that pulling those things from those people has been very impactful for me, pulling the positive on the great leaders, and then recognizing what has made someone a bad leader to not repeat those things myself.
Mhm.
I think for me, coming from a customer service background, you have the customer's voice always in mind as well, so that you're able to really lead the company as a whole, but with that in mind, and able to kind of project that to everyone too, is like, this is what is, our customers are what keep the lights on here. So we need to do our best to make sure we're making the best product and having the best communication with them. And I think that comes full circle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think being in customer service gave you that advantage because
Mhm.
you really do have to be social and personable and have great communication skills. And if
Absolutely.
you don't have the voice of customer in mind, there's some big wins that you could miss out on. So I
Oh, for sure.
I like that. Well, let's talk about, work-life balance as well too, because I know that a lot of women who I've spoken to, they are, either single moms or moms or I love all the stuff that I'm seeing now where they're actually not just thinking about maternity leave, but also thinking about paternity leave so that parents
Mhm.
can be better partners with one another and support one another. But we always have those conversations around, and I don't know if this has happened to you, but it's happened to myself and a lot of other women I've talked to. Like if they're at trade shows or traveling or doing big events, there's always that question, well, who's watching our kids? And it's like, we just left them at home, to
Yeah,
survive on their
they're
own.
out the
So
car.
how have you managed to balance your responsibilities as a mom and a manufacturing leader? Because it can get pretty stressful, but what
Yeah.
sort of skill set do you apply to balancing that out?
So I think that using the term work-life balance, I don't ever think there's a balance really.
Right.
At least not an even balance. Some weeks,
Mhm.
and I think that that's like something you just always have to have kind of front of mind. Like we were talking, I've had my older son has been sick all week, so this week has been a little more on the family side versus work. I've had to leave work early a few days. I've had, where I'm taking my computer and I'm doing stuff later in the evening to make sure he's well taken care of and everything's okay. And then there's other
Mhm.
weeks that we've got big projects or deadlines at work to where um, I know that it's going to be a 50-hour plus week perhaps at work. I think that, and also then the communication, like with my husband, knowing, being able to talk to him to say, okay, this week we have these things coming up, so I can do this portion, you need to do this portion, and working together as a team to make sure that happens. So it it's definitely a balancing act, and I think as long as you don't keep score with it, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, then you can get through and not feel overwhelmed by it. I think if you try too much to say, okay, I have to do everything 50-50, you're going to burn yourself out.
Mhm. Are
So I think
there
it's just
thi
no,
are
go ahead.
there are there things that Mighty Hook is doing as a company to offer that same adaptability and flexibility to some of your employees? Because I know that's a hot topic now
For
too with
sure.
so what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you're doing there?
So it's funny because I was one of the first people to actually have a baby while working at Mighty Hook. And I found out I was pregnant about 3 months after I started.
So scary though when
and
you start a new job.
and I remember going in to talk to my boss about it, and the look, his face kind of like dropped. I think he thought I was quitting, but
Oh.
I finally got it out to say like, no, I'm not quitting. I'm just pregnant. And then he was super excited and super supportive, and we kind of they didn't have a maternity leave policy in place, so we kind of like played it. I was kind of the guinea pig with it. Um, And so now we have not had another person leave on maternity leave, but we do have people with children, and
Mhm.
I am completely understanding and flexible to where, especially like in the winter when we've had some really cold days, I'll get a text from, I've got a customer service person now who, she doesn't want her kids to wait outside with the bus. So I'm going to shift my hours and come in 30 minutes late. Perfect. Like that's, things like that are so important to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to make sure everyone else gets that as well. So I think having flexibility, goes a long way with people. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's doctor's appointments for kids, field trips, you want to be able to experience all those things and not regret it down the road, to say, oh, I had this awful job where I couldn't ever be away to enjoy these things with my children.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that too before we went live. And real quick, I have comments coming up. I usually said yes. And then David Turner's here, Work Life Pendulum. Thanks for joining us, David. He has a really cool podcast too, where it's kind of like you're in the hot seat and ask you a few questions. So it's only like 15 minutes long. He's doing great things. But we were talking about how like our kids have just been sick nonstop. And it's just one of those winters where it seems like, and they're young. So like when they start school young, they're catching everything and anything that seems to be
Right.
floating in the air. So yeah, it gets really challenging sometimes to work around that schedule of, because you never know when they're going to get sick. There's been a couple times too where I've had only like 1 or 2 hours of sleep because my kids were up all night just not
Oh
feeling good.
yeah.
So, are there any other challenges that you faced as a working mother, like some of those other things, or?
Um, not real. I would say when they were infants and I was still nursing, I think like pumping at work was always a kind of like, before we moved to a new office, by the time I'd had my second son, but the first one we were in this old building and I was literally like pumping in the IT like room closet with all of the hard drives and
Yeah.
everything. um, I I don't travel a whole lot, a handful of times a year, but I would say that would be probably a
Mhm.
huge obstacle that I would have had a hard time with had I needed to be traveling more frequently.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of good points too, especially for smaller businesses on what to
Mhm.
consider, especially if they're hiring more women in leadership positions. And I was at a conference in Colorado and I was talking to a woman and she's like, oh, there's this service now that we offer where if a mom is breastfeeding, they can actually overnight their supply to wherever they need it to go so that whoever's watching their children can actually get it in time. And I was
That's
like, that
awesome.
is fantastic. And they have the funding to offer it as a free service. So I
Wow.
gotta take a look at who I was talking to because I just thought that was remarkable. And now you're getting more of like the pods in certain areas. So you're not
Mhm.
in a room where people can accidentally come in and
Yeah.
question
Oh,
where it was always an awkward conversation with some of those companies that are just starting out. And as a woman, I just think it's kind of funny because it's like, it's not really that awkward. Like it's okay, you guys. Um,
yeah. It's not.
yeah,
It's not awkward for me. Like I don't care where I do it, but I don't want to make everyone else uncomfortable. Like that was
right.
like really what it came down to. I'll
Yeah.
sit at my desk, whatever. It's fine.
We have a LinkedIn user. I'm thinking this is Misty. If I'm wrong, let me know. This is a funny topic, Megan. Once I bought an office crib, so when our colleagues with babies were on the way back, they could join the upcoming bigger topic meetings and have their babies with them at a
Yeah.
factory, help the transition from home back to work at a different level. I
And
think that's really cool.
I did the same thing
Yeah.
with my second son. I literally had a pack and play next to my desk, and like twice a week when I was coming in, he would just come with me, and he did really well, surprisingly. But it was also like fun. Like he got kind of passed around with the office
Yeah.
people too, and it was like a nice treat for them as well. Like, who
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
love a
I feel
little
like
baby hanging out?
right. Well, and I feel like if there's some companies there that let people bring in their dogs, because I've worked at companies like that, and then I
Mhm.
thought that was so awesome because the dogs would just come in and everybody just seemed to be more happy and
Oh,
productive.
for sure.
Why
Yeah.
can't you bring in your baby? Like, it's fine as long as, they're not crying all the time. And I had good babies too. They slept all the time and didn't really
I had
move.
the
And
same. And
yeah,
I've let people, hear with their children that if they are, not feeling well or they need to come home early from school, they've brought them back here and they hang out and watch movies
yeah,
and like totally fine. Like if everyone else is okay with it, I think that it makes such a better in like that balance again and the
yeah.
environment of being able to still finish your work and you're knowing your child is like safe next to you and not home alone or sick at school by themselves. So
Yeah.
it all those little things and like who is it hurting?
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. There's so many companies saying that they can't find talent right now. And it's like, well, let people bring in their kids and kind of educate them on what you're doing and show them around the
Mhm.
shop and get them curious about, what your shop is about. You don't have to put them to work there, but you can show them around and give them an idea of like some of the products and stuff you're making. And maybe they'll get curious and want to keep coming back and maybe do an apprenticeship or an internship. So I think that's like the great way to bring awareness to the younger generations about, the
Oh,
stuff you're making.
absolutely. And it starts them thinking about I think when you use the word manufacturing, people's heads go immediately to like engineering or, you know, the people that are in the plant actually physically making the product. And there's so many different roles within a manufacturing company. So I think that gives the insight of, oh my gosh, I could work here and I could do marketing or I could um take people's checks all day,
Yeah.
or I could go work on the shop floor, programming a wire forming machine. So I think that it shows like how many possibilities are really out there.
Yeah. We do have Jamal on. He said, "Hi, what's a soft skill that you've gained as a mom that's turned into a superpower in leadership or manufacturing for you?" That's such a great question, Jamal. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. I think that you really perfect multitasking. Um, Hands down. It's It is, I had a call a couple months ago, and I was home with my 3-year-old, and he insisted on also being in the call to see who was on the screen. Um, and so I was, I was trying to distract him and play a game, and then was instantly, like, right back in our conversation, and the man I was having the call with was like, how did you just do that? Like, you did not miss a beat. Like, you were like, oh, okay, go run and find this. And then you were back in the middle of the sentence that you had just started. So I think that that's definitely um, a good one that
Yeah.
all mothers develop.
Yeah. I'm grateful that COVID happened in the sense that it's let people become more laid back when those types of interruptions happen because
Mhm.
my
Oh,
kids do the same. I had a lady on last week, Parisa, and right when we started, my son Ronan was sick from school, and he came in and he just stood there and like waved to her, and then was like asking me a question, and I'm like, 1 second,
yeah.
I had to like tell him where to go, and then he left and said bye to her before he left, and
Oh,
came
that's
right
so
back.
cute.
So I'm really, and there's been so many meetings too that they've interrupted because they were just like, well, I need my question answered now. Like, that's what you're doing is not important. So it's just, yeah, I think it brings back the human into our industry and makes people understand that, oh wait, yeah, life is not as serious as we need it to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The comic relief it can bring is priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for other women who are trying to do it all, like
Mhm.
whether that's, starting a family or changing their career and being a mom at the same time, what sort of advice would you give them in their careers and personal lives? Because I know like there are women out there who are like, I can't change jobs because I'm, you know, too old, or I can't change jobs because I have my family that I got to worry about. What sort of advice or tips would you give for them?
To give yourself grace and give other women grace and work together as a team. Um find another woman as a mentor and you know, I think that being able to talk through things with another woman who either has gone through something similar or is in a position that you're aspiring to be in is a huge way to help you kind of work your way there. Um, and don't get down on yourself if it doesn't happen overnight or right away, or you have to shift and change your path along, as part of that. But I think also like regularly checking in with yourself to make sure, am I still on the path of getting to that goal? Is that still my goal? Because I think
Mhm.
sometimes, like, life throws so many different things at you. Things can change in an instant. And, you know, having those regular check-ins allows you to kind of, do I need to think about this again? Or is this really something that I am wanting to do? So something that I started at Mighty Hook is the opportunity for everyone to develop a career path. And
Okay.
I think that's a great example of, we've had people that say, okay, well, I want to be doing this in 5 years. And then we kind of break down like what skills are you needing to learn, or what positions are you going to need to have within those 5 years to get you there.
Mhm.
And, you know, several times people will get like one or two steps in and then decide, ooh, no, I don't like this. This isn't what I want to do. And then they get frustrated, but it's like, nope, no need to get frustrated. Now, so now you
Yeah.
didn't just like stick with something for 5 years to be doing something you hate. Like, we can change it. You don't have to, nothing is set in stone to where you have to go do that now.
I like that. So how often are you reviewing what they sat down with you
Quarterly.
initially? That's really cool. I
Mhm.
like that because, yeah, people change their mind and not everything is a home run like when you first started out. We have Arthur Field, life is a pro pitcher or monkey wrenches sometimes.
Love that. Yeah.
And then Jamal, I think, oh, you added your picture. Never mind. That was the same question he asked before. But yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm starting to, do you guys work with schools in your community too to help kids kind of do that? Because I noticed that schools are starting something similar where they sit kids down. And I don't know how kids answer these questions because I was one of those kids where I was like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I just want to be a
Same.
kid and take
Yeah.
naps. But I noticed some schools are doing a similar thing where they're sitting down and then they're sitting students down quarterly trying to figure out like if they want to do more math stuff or more English stuff. Do you guys connect with your schools in your community at
We
all?
haven't yet. It's definitely something. So when I first joined Mighty Hook, our facility was still in the city of Chicago. And we, about 3 years ago, purchased a building in Waukegan, Illinois, which is about 40
Mhm.
miles north of the city. And so that's definitely on my things to do in the upcoming year, is to get more community involved And there is a community college not far from here that has a manufacturing program. So we've
Mhm.
worked with them a bit, at least gotten that started to both work with them and their students and to see how we can kind of help each other out. But I actually had a gentleman in last week, and he was going to a high school so we're really close to the Wisconsin border. And I believe it was in Kenosha, perhaps, which is not far from here.
Mhm.
And they are putting in like a full powder coating line in like their vocational school. And I told them they're kind of in the initial steps, but I told them, I said, I would love to get involved with that. And we could donate to, supplies for them to use, but I would love for them to come and take, tours of our facility or whatever we can do to help assist with that program.
That's really cool. Let me know
Mhm.
if you connect with them because I have a team that can help you capture all that on video, and that would be a
Oh,
really great
cool. Yeah.
story. Yeah. So we have a couple comments. LinkedIn user, sorry, I don't know who this is. A quick stop by to shout all women in the trade and manufacturing, you name it, GC. I don't know who that is. If you want to drop your name, LinkedIn has some weird settings sometimes. I admire all moms working in the industry, showing a great example of the coming generation. How would you help younger generations to take this path? I think that's a good question.
Sure. So I think that really it all starts with communication and putting it out there to say, these are the goals that I have for myself, both professionally and personally. And work with whether it be your manager or whoever to like make sure that those goals are aligned with what they're helping you with.
Mhm.
um I think that is just so incredibly important. And if they're not helping you or supporting you, you might want to look at making some changes because that won't make it easy
Yeah.
continuing in that direction. But there's other, and I'm not saying like quit your job per se, but there might be other opportunities to move to a different department or to um, work under someone else.
Mhm.
I think that having that alignment with your manager at work is a huge thing. And again, if anything changes, then you're on top of it. You're able to communicate that and
Yeah.
then shift your path. But I kind of think that's where it all has to start.
Mhm. And the great thing about manufacturing and engineering too, it's so broad. There's so many
Mhm.
opportunities, and I know some people who work with companies and they either get let go or are laid off. It can be a scary thing, and it's like we need so much help now. Like you could literally probably turn the block and find someone who would hire you. So I think it's a
Oh, for
great
sure.
place to create your own path and, you know, dabble in a little bit here and there. Frank said robotics and drones are a great way to connect kids to STEM. Absolutely.
Love that.
I think anything that moves and in an automated way is great. GC is Greg. Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for joining and dropping your name. Your LinkedIn settings is preventing you from having your name on there, so I'm sorry about that. But I think it's important to, as you said, you have to have that communication, but I think you also have to be inspired by someone or something to
Mm,
really
yeah.
pursue your career pathway. So that has who is like your biggest inspiration in both your personal and professional life? And it can be this is the same person if there's not
Sure.
two different
I think
people.
personally, growing up, I'm the oldest of four kids. Watching both of my parents work super hard and raise a family, they really instilled a great work ethic in me. And, I've had a job since I was 16 years old, and I always like thrived at whether it was working at a grocery store or clothing store. I always had compliments about my strong work ethic. And I think that's really come a long way for me. I also have two amazing girlfriends that we are so supportive of each other, and we're each other's cheerleaders. And whether it's to call and vent about whatever's happening, or to call and like ask for advice on how we would handle a situation, is so impactful on my life. And then I think professionally, I think that the owner of Mighty Hook has been so great with me, and he, took a big leap of faith in hiring me for the role that I'm doing, and has been a great mentor and just a great sounding board at times that I've been able to bounce ideas off, and really has me moving in the right direction.
So from your experience, starting in customer service and working at all the different companies that you've worked at, and then now you're VP at Mighty Hook, have you noticed any changes in how women's roles in this space have really evolved? Like what has captured your eye and
I
perspective?
definitely think that we're seeing more women in every department. I feel like you didn't
Mhm.
always see it that way. You would walk through a room of engineers and maybe not see any women. And I think that has changed a lot. I think we're seeing more women in more like executive leadership roles, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that it's there's definitely more diversity there now, where even 10 years ago it wasn't that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's still small. I think the last article I read, 1 in 4 managing leaders is a woman, and then I think we only represent like 12% at the C suite level, but that might have changed because I think that was from like 2022 or 2023. So hopefully we bumped it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that so I am a part of for anybody that's in manufacturing, in like the finishing industry, I'm a
Mhm.
part of a group that's called Women in Finishing. And every year we have a conference, but it's been an awesome opportunity to see all these different women in all these different roles, from women that are operating equipment in a plant, to marketing, to engineering, to like executive roles. It's just so cool to see how many women are doing this, and a range of all ages. So it's awesome. I think it's really encouraging
Yeah.
to everybody out there.
Well, and I think too, it's important to see, yourself at the top, because then you get an idea of like, okay, if I can stick to this and if I can learn these things, that's where I can end up. I can end up there. And
Mhm.
I've noticed a lot of women that have just created their own path. I met one woman and she's like, I'm just that petty type where I like to prove people wrong. So if they tell me I'm never going to move forward because it's male dominated, she's like, I'll just work harder and win over you. I just thought that's
That's
the funniest.
awesome.
Yeah. She's like, I'm real petty when people tell me no. And I'm like, well, don't be bitter. And she's like, I'm not bitter. It gives me that determination to say, no, I
Yeah.
can do it and I deserve to be here. So it's a lot of fun. We have so many comments coming in, and I think this is awesome. So where did we leave off? We have Joe. Yes, the needle is moving. It
Yeah.
definitely is moving. I would like it to move a little bit faster. And I think we have some great women that are helping that. And then Hank says, hi, Megan, can't stay. Sing on the phone on a wind away. We'll listen to the rerun. Awesome. Tell Peyton and Aiden I said hi, Hank, and give them hugs for me. So Hank, his daughters watch a lot of the Mavens episodes, and also a sister podcast of Mavens called Automation Ladies. And I had Barbie the welder come on, and they asked him if they could learn how to weld. And he has sent me pictures of them like welding in his garage and everything.
That's
So like,
awesome.
yeah, this is why storytelling is important. This is why we need to share our
Yeah.
story. And then the needle is indeed moving. I know of female maintenance tech that is now looking to keep stacking skills and do even more manufacturing. Love that. That's awesome. But yeah, I just talked to a woman from corrosion control, which I was like, wait, what is that? And she's like, well, we have to maintain all of the pipes and infrastructure. And I was like what pipes? And the big pipes underneath dirt and stuff. Like I didn't even know about that. And it's a pretty important thing to keep
Yeah.
us all safe, you know? Like, so yeah, I really appreciate you coming here sharing your story. Well, let's look towards the future. What are some of the things that you're getting really excited about, whether that's at Mighty Hook or things that you're
Mhm.
seeing outside of your industry? Like, what are you getting really excited about?
I think the way automation is being brought into things is super interesting. Um, I think that it, so we do a big trade show in Chicago every year where we have a booth. And
Mhm,
last year, I had all of our plant employees come attend and just walk through the show. And there
mhm,
is a huge section that is kind of, robot welders. And I think it made some of the guys a little nervous of, wait a minute, well, is that going to replace me? Like, am I going to be out of a job if you decide to buy 5 of these robot welders? I'm like, no, because they need someone to operate them. They still need, somebody has to know how to program the robots. Somebody needs to know how to do the maintenance on them. So it's not eliminating a job, it's shifting what we're doing. But also then gaining capacity of a robot can do that. You can be working on another project. So
yeah,
I think that we've got some opportunities to work with a robot manufacturing company to work together on how does a robot hang products to go through a paint line so that a person is not having to do it.
mhm,
So we're kind of in really early stages of that, but really cool things to come with it.
yeah. Was it at IMTS or FabTech?
Fab tech.
FabTech?
Hmm.
That's coming back to Chicago this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, in
Okay,
September.
I think I'm gonna walk that show if I'm around. It's a super cool show to see what's going on in metal fabrication. Like I was blown away by some of the robots. And the thing is though, is like there's certain things that they still can't do
Right.
with the welding portion of it.
Hmm.
So it's very basic welding from my understanding that they're accomplishing. But I mean, if they can get to a point, have you seen those rig welders where they're out on the giant oil rigs?
Uh-huh.
That's scary. Like I don't know how they do that, but I don't think that's a job I would ever want to pursue.
No, no. And those people are highly compensated for those
Oh, for sure.
jobs
For
and earn
sure.
every penny of
Oh,
it.
for sure. And I'm just trying to I'm like, you gotta be some sort of like hard ass, excuse my language, to be able to do
Oh,
that kind of
yeah.
job. Like kudos to them.
Fearless.
I can't. So I understand like why that robotics welding is of interest. N robots are our friends, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm one of those people too, like, if it has some sort of face on it, like that movie WALL-E, I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cute," and I'm like, "Why am I emotionally connected to this piece of metal?" I don't get it. It's a little bit creepy.
If
Um,
you if you get a chance, you'll have to go to the automation show in Chicago. I don't know if they do that every year, every other year, but we went to it last year. It's not
Automate,
as big as Fab Tech, but it is fascinating.
they're in Detroit this year, so
Oh,
I'll be
okay.
there for a few days. I missed, Chicago last year because I was at another event, but it is a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to a more, focused one in May, April. It's the Robotics Summit and Expo, and it's more of like a conference style type of show. It's a little bit
Okay.
smaller, more intimate, but you get to see like what's coming out and like some of the issues the industry has faced. It's more of a learning opportunity. And it was really fascinating because I didn't know that construction was using automation, and I learned about the tie bot there and like how they're using the tie bot to tie off bridges and before they pour in
Wow.
the cement. Yeah, and I was talking to a gentleman in construction, and he's like, you don't know how many guys have lost all of their fingers by trying to do those ties on bridges. He's like, it's a very dangerous
Oh
thing.
my
So if we can
gosh.
give them the opportunity to work on something else using this tie bot, he's like, it just is more productive and efficient, and it gives them an opportunity to work on something else and keep all of their fingers. And I'm
Right.
like, that is pretty cool. URL for that robotics show. Frank, I'll drop that after this conversation because I don't have any tabs open, surprisingly, because normally I have 20 million of them open. But I'll include that in the show notes and I'll put it in one of the comments after we sign off here. It's in Boston. It's a really cool show. So I highly recommend anybody to attend that as well. How do you think how do you envision more women stepping into leadership roles in this industry? Like what do you think needs to happen, or what are some of the things you're committed to doing to really inspire more women to maybe step out of their comfort zone, because not everybody thinks they can be a leader or want to be a leader, but I feel like women sometimes, if they don't feel 100% qualified for that type of position, then
Mhm.
they're not going to apply it. So how do you envision that changing for the future so that we can bring more women
Um,
leaders?
I think that that kind of fits in with like the career path of maybe encouraging to add that to, I've had a couple people where it's like, I don't really know. Like I'm nothing, I'm okay with just doing this. And so I think maybe putting it out there as a challenge, but then but not then sending them off on their own, but then to support and to coach through those things.
Yeah.
I think that empowering people with decision making kind of is a first step in getting them comfortable with those things. And
Yeah.
if you're comfortable in thinking through something and being able to make your own decision, and I really enjoy putting people through that when they're asking me questions, is to help, like, let's help yourself answer your own question instead of me just giving you an answer. I want to give you the resource in order to make that decision on your own. So yeah, I think just challenging people, and it doesn't have to be something crazy, but taking it in small steps that they're comfortable with to get them a little bit outside of that comfort zone each time. I think really goes a long way.
I like that because when I went from a big corporation to a smaller company, um, it was definitely an adjustment, and I had a really good manager, and she would challenge me every single day, but she didn't do it in a way where I thought I was getting lectured or I thought I did something bad. She
Mhm.
would just ask the right questions, and I was like, "Oh, she's making me think so that I can make this." So she was setting me up for success, and it was just such a weird experience at first because I was so used to that corporate environment where I was getting micromanaged and
Yeah, and talked
question.
at
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not like a part of the conversation. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Leigh, what is up next for Mighty Hook? Like, what are some of the things you guys are planning to do? What shows are you going to be at? I know you mentioned Fab Tech. Is there anywhere else that people can catch you and learn more about some of the services you're providing?
Sure. So I'm actually in the process of updating our website, which is exciting and challenging and time consuming. But my goal this year is to really focus on growth. And in order to do that, we need a really nice functioning website. So that's kind of my Q1 project this year. We will be at FabTech in September, which is always a great show, great opportunity to meet people, make connections, see the biggest and best things that are out there right now, see what's coming up down the line.
Mhm.
And then what else have we got going on? I will be at the Women in Finishing Conference in May. That is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Anybody that would be interested, feel free to reach out to me for that, more info. Um, and yeah, that's where we're coming up with some new product development this year. And so our engineering team is working on a powered rotator, which kind of spins as it moves down the
Oh, that's
line
cool.
so that you're manually not having to rotate your product as it's being painted. So we're excited to launch that. That's going to be ready to launch at FabTech this year. So those are
That's
kind of the
super.
big
I'll have to
things.
I'll have to stop by your booth and check it out because
Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
if I'm available, I'm gonna go to that show, and then I'll introduce you to Emily. She is in near the Grand Rapid area, and I know she'd want to talk to you. She's really good with website stuff too, so I'll connect you with
Okay.
her. And she's awesome. She's just
Very cool. Yeah.
she has an engineering background, and she's a
Okay.
great storyteller.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's just a fun person to be connected to.
Yeah.
Well, Leah, I want to give you an opportunity to ask our audience a question. So if you had one ask for our audience, what would it be?
Ooh, hmm. Actually a big question that is kind of more technical, but another big thing that I feel we need here in order to grow and expand is um, a new ERP system. So if anybody out there is an ERP expert, I would love any and all advice in what the what a good option would be for that.
I have some people I'm going to email you.
Great.
So I have like 5 email introductions I'm going to make for you for ERP and
Yeah.
for website. So just
Great.
check your inbox out. And if
Perfect.
anybody, I know anybody tuning in probably came up with the same name that I did with the ERP system, just because they're really good and they've gotten a lot of great compliments. So I'm going to keep that a secret though, and not put that out. And then, well, Frank said we should talk. So Frank, that's my next question. My last question. What's the easiest way for people to connect with you and get connected with Mighty Hook?
Sure. So either through my LinkedIn page or email.
Okay. And I have her name
Both are
tagged in
good.
all of the posts, so you feel free to click on her name, and that should take you directly to her LinkedIn profile. So, Leah, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to
Of
speak with us and share
course.
your story. I will let you know if I will be at FabTech, and I will check
Yeah,
out your booth if I'm there, because I
that'd
would
be
love to
great.
see what you guys are displaying, and maybe we can take a quick video there and get that posted out as well. So I would love to help you guys out with that. But for everyone tuning in, thank you so much. I appreciate all of the comments and the questions. If you're not subscribed to Mavens, please go to the YouTube channel and subscribe there and catch up on all the past and present videos that we're putting out. If you are looking for someone to help you with your merch, please stay tuned. I have a message from Fresh Horizons. They help me with all of my Mavens merchandise. They are a family-owned business, and they are just the bee's knees. I love them. They're great human beings. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. Stay safe and be kind to one another. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.